In 2024, Japan's population fell for the 14th consecutive year, not by a little, by more than 800,000 people in a single year. That is the equivalent of a mid-sized city simply disappearing from the map. But what makes this moment different is not only the number, it is what that number is now triggering inside the systems that hold Japan together. Empty homes, closed schools, rural villages with more funerals than births, a shrinking workforce supporting one of the oldest populations on Earth. Japan has crossed into phase 2. This is the phase where demographic decline stops being a future warning and starts breaking into daily life. Infrastructure, logistics, healthcare, local economies, and the social fabric itself. For decades, people called Japan's stagnation a warning. In 2026, it looks more like a preview. Because what is happening in Japan today may soon happen across Europe, East Asia, and even parts of America. In the next 8 minutes, I will show you exactly which systems are breaking, why the robot revolution did not solve the problem, and why Japan's most important lesson is not that a country can decline. It is that a country can become smaller, older, quieter, and still keep functioning. And that may be the future many countries are not prepared for. Stay until the end. In a small town in Akiya Prefecture, where more than 38% of residents are aged 65 or older, the highest ratio of any prefecture in Japan, a 74-year-old man has run the only grocery store within 30 kilometers for over 3 decades. Last year, his delivery service dropped from 3 times a week to once. Then, for 3 weeks in February 2024, it stopped entirely. No storm, no flood, no infrastructure failure. The truck simply had no drivers. This is not an isolated story. This is Japan's new operational reality. According to Japan's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism's 2023 Trucking Industry White Paper, the sector is operating with a structural workforce gap of 15 to 24%. 1 in 5 deliveries across affected regions can no longer be reliably guaranteed. Not delayed, not rerouted, simply not happening. Supermarkets have adjusted inventory downward. Hospitals have restructured supply timelines. Small businesses have reduced order volumes, not because demand fell, but because reliable delivery can no longer be assumed. This is what happens when a population shrinks below the threshold needed to run its own infrastructure. The decline does not arrive as a single crisis. It arrives as a series of quiet failures, each one individually manageable, collectively irreversible. But logistics is only the surface layer. The deeper collapse is happening in the numbers that rarely make headlines, until the consequences are impossible to manage. According to the National Institute of Population and Social Security Research's 2023 projections, Japan's own official government forecast, the working age population will fall from approximately 74 million today to under 60 million by 2040. That is 14 million fewer contributors to the tax base within a single generation. At the same time, the proportion of people aged 65 and over will exceed 35% of the total population by 2040. The ratio of working age adults to retirees, which stood at 5 to 1 when Japan's pension system was designed, now sits at 2 to 1. By 2040, 1.5 to 1. Japan's Cabinet Office Aging Society White Paper for 2024 confirms that Social Security expenditure now accounts for over 33% of the National General Account budget. That figure has risen every single year for 2 decades, and it is not going in a reversible direction. The OECD's 2023 review of Japan's aging and employment policies confirmed that Japan's old age dependency ratio, the number of people aged 65 and over per 100 working age adults, is projected to be among the highest of any OECD country by 2050. To understand what a ratio of 1.5 workers per retiree actually demands, a single worker in their 40s must now contribute enough through taxes and pension premiums to help fund the retirement, the healthcare, and the long-term care of someone who may live for another 25 years, while simultaneously paying for housing, managing rising costs, and, if they have children, financing one of the most expensive educational environments in the developed world. The pension system was not designed for this ratio. No pension system was. Japan has been adjusting quietly, incrementally, through benefit reductions, extended contribution periods, and sustained deficit spending year after year. Now here's the part that changes how you think about Japan's response. Because Japan had a plan, a decades-long, heavily funded plan backed by record government investment and praised by international economic institutions. The plan was automation. Japan has maintained one of the highest industrial robot densities in the world for over 30 years. consistently ranking first or second globally in robots per manufacturing worker, according to the International Federation of Robotics. The strategy was clear: replace the labor that demographics were removing with machines that do not age, do not retire, and do not draw pensions. For a significant period, this appeared to be working. But in 2024, the structural limits of that strategy became undeniable. Here is what almost no one says out loud. Automation solves production problems. It does not solve social ones. A robot can assemble a car with extraordinary precision. It cannot pay income tax at the level that funds a rural hospital. It cannot maintain the population density required to keep a local school open. It cannot be the neighbor, the delivery driver, the nurse, the shopkeeper, the human presence that makes a place worth living in. Consider what Japan's automation strategy actually achieved versus what it promised. Japan's manufacturing output has remained globally competitive despite a workforce that, by conventional economic logic, should have caused significant industrial decline. In that narrow sense, automation worked. But the competitive economy and the livable society it was supposed to support are not the same thing. The factory in Nagoya is still running, the village in Akiya is not, and no industrial robot, no matter how sophisticated, generates the local tax revenue, the foot traffic, the school enrollment, or the intergenerational presence that a living community requires to sustain itself. Japan concentrated its economic investment in places that machines could reach. The places machines could not reach, the mountainside villages, the fishing communities, the aging market towns, lost not just workers, but the economic rationale for remaining inhabited at all. This is the paradox at the heart of Japan's automation story. The more efficient the productive economy became, the more it made human presence unnecessary in the places where human presence was the only thing keeping them alive. Japan currently has approximately 9 million vacant homes, called Akiya, according to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications Housing Survey 2023. 1 in every 8 residential properties in the country empty, not because of a market crash, because the people who lived there died and no one moved in. And the vacancy rate is accelerating, not stabilizing. 38 of Japan's 47 prefectures reported population decline in 2023. In 20 of those, the rate of decline accelerated compared to the previous year. Every single prefecture, without exception, recorded a fall in its working-age population. This is no longer a regional story. It is a national structural condition. So what is Japan actually doing? In 2024, Japan expanded its foreign worker visa program to a scale without precedent in its modern immigration history, targeting construction, healthcare, agriculture, and hospitality. For a country that built a significant part of its national identity around cultural continuity, and maintained one of the most restrictive immigration frameworks of any OECD member for most of its post-war history, this is not a minor policy adjustment. It is a structural admission made through legislation, not press conferences, that the internal labor supply can no longer sustain the economy on its own terms. The scale of Japan's 2024 visa expansion is worth examining closely. The program now covers 16 designated industries, up from the original framework, with pathways for skilled workers to bring family members and eventually transition to permanent residency. The workers arriving are helping fill immediate gaps, but the pace of arrival is still below what the labor projections require, and the social infrastructure for integration, language support, housing access, community inclusion is being built in real time, under pressure, without a clear precedent. South Korea's total fertility rate fell to 0.72 in 2023, the lowest ever recorded in any country in peacetime, according to Statistics Korea. Germany's Federal Statistical Office projects a working-age population decline of approximately 7 million by 2035 without sustained immigration. Italy recorded its lowest birth total since national unification in 1861. The difference between Japan and these countries is not the destination. It is the timing. Japan is 5 to 15 years ahead. What is already embedded in Japan's daily reality, the delivery failures, the pension arithmetic, the automated but emptying countryside, is not a uniquely Japanese story. It is a preview. Japan is not collapsing in a single visible moment. It is reorganizing, slowly, systematically, without drama, around a smaller and older population than the one it was built for. The trains still run. The streets are still clean. The cities still function. But the math underneath is not moving in a correctable direction. And the question Japan is now answering in real time, whether a modern society can remain functional, cohesive, and purposeful as it shrinks, is not only Japan's question, it is the question every aging country will face. Japan simply arrived first.